Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. You're watching At Home with Troy, and I am Troy, of course. And in today's video, it's going to be a sit down and a talk with me. It's going to be a little bit different than what I usually do. I had a request from a fellow military wife, and if you all know anything about me, I'm really passionate about helping other spouses navigate military wife life. I was once a soldier, and that still did not prepare me for what it was like to be a military wife and the things that I needed to take care of a military family. So I got a video request from a military wife, and I don't care if it's one wife asking me for advice on something or there's 10, I'm going to take the time to make a video for her. So this is for you, my new Air Force wife, sister, how to set the tone in your home. I would assume, I've never been a civilian wife per se, even before my husband went active duty. When he was a reservist, he was still, he was a police officer. So I've never been I've never had a husband that worked 9 to 5. I never had a husband that had a job that was, for lack of better words, I mean, it's dependable as far as the check is going to show up, but as far as schedules, nothing of that nature would ever be dependable in that line of work. So I've always had to try to run my home in a way to give consistency and stability that his job could not. The difference in civilian jobs, of course, and jobs like the one that my husband has had, is that there is no stability as far as schedule. There is no stability and where they're going to be or when they're going to be somewhere. It all depends on what the happenings of the day are. So whereas most wives can set a routine, they can set their schedule based on husband going to work at a specific time and husband getting off at a different time, when dinner should be on the table, when I need to wake up to have his breakfast ready and things of that nature. That's not something that a military wife can do. So my first tip for setting a tone in your home is have a flexible schedule that you built and not around your husband. And I know that sounds so backwards to hear from a homemaker, is like, don't consider your husband in the routine that you're setting. And when I say don't consider him, I don't mean like pretend that he doesn't exist, but your home has got to, you have to have a setup, and you have to have a routine that he can fit in, because he will never ever be able to have consistency. Even if he does have consistency for a year, it's going to change with duty stations. It's going to change if he gets promoted. It's going to change with more responsibility, so even junior enlisted, if you have your husband's an E4 and let's say there are no soldiers, he's not a squad leader, even though his rank may not change, he may become a squad leader, and then he has more duties that he has to perform, which means he'll stay at work longer, or there'll be more privates for him to have to consider and have to take care of. So those are the type of things that I'm talking about, that it can change at the drop of a dime. So when I say set a schedule, what I mean is something that you usually will do, and you can move it and you can adjust it to when he comes or when he leaves. For an example, there are times, when our husbands are going to be gone for a month in the field, so you waking up at, let's say 5 before he goes to PT to make him coffee, or to, spend time together because he might be working 10-hour shifts. And by the time he gets home, you're putting kids to bed and things of that nature. That might change. So have a schedule that is flexible, that where he can fit in easily, and when he's not there, it'll still function exactly the same. My second tip for setting a tone in the home is, I know this is very controversial. I know a lot of people like to say, if there's a need, fill it. But I have found that in my home, having specific roles make things so much easier, because to me, it leads to neither one of me nor my spouse being disappointed. If I know my role and I know things that I take care of in the home, then it'll get done. And I don't have to have an expectation of, is he going to do it? Will he think about me and do it, et cetera, et cetera. And my husband has the same thing. For an example, when my husband is home, I do not do yard work. I'll send my boys out there. Maybe I'll help him hold a trash bag as he's raking leaves, but I don't do yard work when he is home. Now, when he is deployed, of course, I have to go out there. I'm not going to allow my house to look crazy. But so there's no disappointment. There is no, oh, you didn't get around to cutting the grass. That is a responsibility. That is a task that we have defined for each other. This is your task. This is my task, and I will do it to the best of my ability. Now, I'm not saying if my husband goes and, tears his ACL, I'm not going to cut the grass. Of course, I will step in if there's a need be. But just for a regular routine, when we have tasks defined, it takes away the resentment. It takes away, well, why didn't you do it? Well, you see that it needed to be done, and all of that silliness that, sometimes can happen, in day-to-day life when, something needs to be done, but, you're looking to see if the other person's going to take care of it or not. So for me, a big thing about setting a tone in a home is having defined roles so that there is no resentment, there is no disappointment, there is no expectations that aren't being met, because we both know what our duties are and we're both going to try to fulfill them to the best of our ability each time. My next tip is going to be patience and understanding with the occupation. So when you're married to a soldier, an airman, a sailor, a Marine, any of the above, there are going to be things that have to be done that they don't have a choice in. Things from morale building exercises and events that they have to go to something maybe even larger where there's training that, maybe someone forgot to put on the calendar, and then, in a period of 48 hours, he has to go to the field. There's a certain level of stress that comes in when the soldier has to deal with that. And in my opinion, the last thing they need is a wife that's like, why? Look at how this affects me. And it's just like, it sucks for them too. They're not enjoying it. So just understand, whether you have a spouse that's an NCO and he has to babysit a bunch of adults, to, someone who is junior enlisted and he has to listen to his superiors that sometimes are extremely unkind, may show nepotism and things of that nature. Just have an understanding that they don't have the regular, they don't have the regular channels to relieve stress. They don't have the regular ways, to get out of something, where if you, had a civilian job and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not dealing with this stress today. I'm calling out. Our spouses cannot do those things. So definitely have an understanding and patience with that, because you just having resentment and you having attitude and you thinking about only how it affects you is just going to put a strain on the relationship. My next tip would be to be realistic, but still be optimistic. You can still have hope and you can still see the silver lining in things, even though they are difficult. So deal with things when you go to specific duty stations. Some are harder than others. Some of them don't have community. Some of them are not in the best areas in the world in general. Sometimes, duty stations on the west side are hard on your wallet, just different things of that nature that you will experience. Be optimistic. Where there is a will, there is a way. So you can be realistic in handling those challenges, whether they be financial, whether you're at a training base and you don't see your husband a lot, then you really need to make the most of the time that you guys are together, and that is a part of setting the tone, is accepting what has been dealt to you and dealing with it in the best way possible. Now, you guys, I want to switch over to talking about some physical things that set the tone in a military home. So one of the biggest things about being in a military home is that where you are right now may not be where you're going to be next year. And it could change from year to year, and you might get a period of 3 years or 4 years you get to sit in a place, and there might be years where you only get to sit at a place, sometimes even for 1 year, depending on your husband's rank. If he gets promoted and there's no space for him, y'all could be there, for 9 months and still have to go. Things like that happen all the time. So one major thing about setting a tone in a military home is making it yours. Honey, I do not care if you are moving in a year. Put pictures on your wall. You need to see your grandma. You need to see your cousins in your home. You need to have those blue curtains that you really, really like. It is worth every bit of it. Set the tone in a military home by making it yours in the ways that you can. You can't make a lot of permanent changes, of course, but make it yours. Personalize it, because you don't want to feel as if you're constantly living in a hotel, because that you're going to move. My next tip, as far as the physical way of setting a tone in your home, is with military life, our husbands bring a ton of clutter. Now, just in general, a stereotype is that a woman has the closet and her husband gets this little corner. But when you're a military wife, your husband seems to get all the closet and some shed space in the garage because he has so much doggone gear. So I would definitely say, as far as trying to not let that overwhelm you and not let that be a sore subject where you're always, kicking over a Kevlar, and you got winter boots and you got summer boots, and you got sleeping bag systems and all this other stuff, and the tent that he may need, and all these other tools and canteens and just all the nonsense that he's probably going to use for a short period of time that's going to be in your house and is taking up space, is to invest in maybe some tough boxes. If you have the space, to give him a linen closet. If you have more than one, try to consolidate things for the family in one, and then he gets the second one, because there's going to be so much gear in your life, and when it's everywhere, it can be overwhelming. It can be irritating that this one person requires so many physical items to do his job. So you guys, the last tip that I want to say, and I saved it for last because I really want to drive this point home, because I believe how we speak is a large part on how we feel and how we see things, as far as our attitude. And as a keeper of the home, you can't have a resentful attitude of your duties and the things that I don't even want to say your crosses to bear. We've made choices in our life, and we did choose to be with someone in the military, whether they were in it when we met them or before. That now comes a part of our history, and I am not trying to dismiss its hardships and say you get what you get. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But what I am trying to do is show that it can be a life of reward depending on how you see it. So when I speak about language, I have had and come in contact with many wives that say their spouses get. And it's a little frustrating to me, because they'll say things like, oh, my husband gets to work out every day. That must be nice. Oh, he gets to travel for work, and he doesn't have to deal with, the crazy of the home. It must be nice. But when they say that, it gives a sense of resentment to what your spouse is going through and what he is doing to provide for you. So that's why I believe language is important. Your spouse does not get to wake up and work out every single day. He has to, in order to provide for you. I was a dietitian's assistant in the military, and the biggest reason that soldiers are being dismissed at that time from the military was due to a lack of physical fitness. So, as a soldier, your largest asset is your body. It's, your body being healthy, your mind being healthy. So your husband doesn't get to work out. He has to. That is a part of his job. Me personally, I'm a pretty fit person. I do like to exercise, but I don't like to wake up at 4:00 in the morning in spite of whatever the weather is, not having a choice, and go exercise with a bunch of co-workers. That would not be my choice, of having, I wouldn't choose to do that, so it's not that they get to, it is a part of their job. They don't get to go to great cities, whether they get a promotion for schooling or something of that nature. That's a part of their job. They must. Do they get to sightsee? Are there some things nice that they could do there? Of course. Would it be great, if we could all just do whatever we want and visit our spouse and hang out there and get paid to do it as well? Sure. But we all know the real world does not work like that. So it's not an issue of what our spouses get to do. It's not an issue of how, we are 8 times out of 10 left holding the fort down because their job requires them to physically be away from us quite a bit. They don't get to. They have to. And depending on how you set the tone in your home, they will want to be at home, or they would rather be at work. And I truly believe that is all up to you. So you guys, I hope that this video was really helpful for military wives, new ones that really want to set a relaxing and a calm and a dependable home when your spouses have an occupation that is none of the above. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.